Schizo posting time LOL.
Hi diddly ho, /x/. Today I would like to discuss a unique and important topic with you. This topic, as you may have guessed, is ghost dinosaurs. I've studied this topic extensively over the past 7 years. First, a little history lesson. Berlin, spring of 1941. The German Reich is officially at its height. The German war machine is thriving, and is both looking for any way to capitulate the British Isles and looking for a weapon to ensure their victory in the upcoming war with the Soviet Union. Adolf Hitler's second in command, Heinrich Himmler, a notorious occultist within the Reich, tells his best occultic scientists to figure out a way to win the war. These scientists contact one man. His name was Ernst Schaefer. If that name doesn't ring a bell, that's not surprising. Schaefer was a relatively unknown German SS officer and zoologist who led the German expedition to Tibet in 1939. While he was leading the expedition, he came across groups of monks who were able to astral project at will. Interestingly enough, these monks were also able to force people to astral project. Schaefer noted that these monks took a criminal from a nearby village, and forced him into a state of astral projection. The monks then destroyed the man's body, while using a ritual to bind his soul to the earth, forced the criminal to serve the monks. In this state, the man was able to influence the material world, yet was unable to be reasonably affected by any material object or force. The monks had created a ghost slave of sorts. The occultic scientists were intrigued by this process. They seized Schaefer's notes on the phenomenon and set to work. Within just 2.5 months, the scientists near perfected the process. They only had one question. What would they use this newfound power on? This question once again requires a history lesson. Antarctica, New Schwabenland, aka New Swabia, 1938. The German Reich sent an expedition to New Swabia, aiming to both scout out the area and start the construction of a secret base. On this expedition, they discovered a passage into inner Earth. A passage into hollow Earth. A passage into Agartha. Here, the lands were roaming with dinosaurs. Living, breathing, dinosaurs. Impressed with the area, the expedition party began building a base in the region. The party began training the dinosaurs, incorporating them into the new Swabian defense force. In only 3 years, the new Swabians would have dinosaur cavalry and fleets of UFOs from the local Agarthans at their disposal. Alright, so we've talked about ghosts, and we've talked about dinosaurs, but what about ghost dinosaurs? The occultic scientists had heard stories about the dinosaurs of New Swabia and decided that these creatures would make perfect candidates. They shipped over a few dinosaurs, and got to work. The procedure was successful. The Reich now had ghost dinosaurs. They tested the ghost dinosaurs only days later, at the start of Operation Barbarossa. It was a rousing success. The dinosaurs punched through the Soviet lines, unable to be stopped in any way. Officially, the Soviets claimed the German panzers were the reason for these losses, as they did not want soldiers rioting upon knowing that they may have to fight ghost dinosaurs. Times looked grim for the Soviet Union. It seemed that soon German ghost dinosaurs would be parading down the streets of Moscow. However, Stalin had an ace up his sleeve. His ace? The NKVD. The NKVD had infiltrated the German war machine, and was able to relay back to Moscow the exact process of how to create ghost slaves. The Soviets only needed to figure out what creature to use for their ghost slaves. This, again, requires another history lesson. Siberia, June 30th, 1908. This is, of course, the date of the Tunguska event. On this date, an alien spacecraft came crashing into Earth, flattening trees for hundreds of miles and decimating the nearby Siberian landscape. No aliens survived. The Russians found the dead aliens, and stored them away under Moscow. They sat there for years, forgotten, until the Soviets came to power. The Soviets discovered the aliens hidden under the city, and immediately started cloning them. It took near a decade, but they succeeded in making alien clones. The Soviets decided that ghost aliens would be the perfect counter to the ghost dinosaurs, and got to work. This is, of course, the origin of the age-old question: who would win? A ghost dinosaur or ghost alien? Unfortunately, it seemed that ghost alien was the correct answer to that question. The Soviets first released their ghost aliens during the Battle of Stalingrad. The ghost aliens were able to push the ghost dinosaurs out of the city, reclaiming it for the motherland. The rest of the war was a slog. The Soviets had far more ghost aliens at their disposal than the Germans had ghost dinosaurs. While some ghost dinosaurs could easily deal with the ghost aliens, they'd always get swarmed and taken down. All German ghost dinosaurs were sent to the Ostfront, just to combat the ghost aliens. No American, British, or other Western country ever combated these ghost dinosaurs, at least for now. However, this only slowed the ghost alien advance. The ghost alien horde swept through Europe, and eventually marched into Berlin. The ghost aliens hung the Soviet flag from the Reichstag, and the war was over. Some Germans, Hitler included, managed to flee to New Swabia, continuing to build up the base in the region. This would not be the last the world saw of them. Stalin, satisfied, ordered his men not to pursue, once Germany had been occupied. Both the Soviets and Americans started collecting as many leftover German scientists as they could. The Soviets wanted them to refine the ghost slave process, but the unaware Americans simply wanted the scientists for their rocketry. The German scientists in American hands, not wanting to open yet another can of worms, didn't tell the Americans about the process. The next part of this story takes place only about a year later. Antarctica, Neuschwabenland, aka New Swabia, 1946. The Americans had gotten word of German activities in New Swabia, and sent in soldiers to crush the Reich once and for all. This operation, Operation High Jump, failed miserably. This was the first time American forces encountered ghost dinosaurs, as well as the Reich's UFO fleet. They stood no chance. The operation took heavy casualties, and Admiral Richard Byrd publicly took the blame. After the operation, the Americans approached their German scientists, and asked them about what they just fought. The scientists informed them about the ghost slave process, bringing the Americans into the fray. Immediately, the Americans started their own experiments. The Americans started using people for its ghost slave process. However, they used well-trained people. Ghost slaves kept the knowledge and training they had in life, so the USA would typically intensely train a person for 2 to 3 years before subjecting them to the process. This eventually culminated into MK Ultra, in which the US government would pull random people off the streets and attempt to quickly brainwash them into super soldiers, instead of taking the time to actually train them. All three superpowers now had ghost slaves. The Americans to the west, Soviets to the east, and Germans to the south. Things were about to come to a head. The Cold War was used to test and improve ghost slaves on both the American and Soviet sides. The Korean and Vietnamese wars both saw limited fighting between American ghost super soldiers and Soviet ghost aliens. The Germans merely sat back, and improved their dinosaur ghost slaves with the help of the Agarthans. It seemed like there would be no end to the stalemate between major powers, until one man ascended to the presidency of the United States. This man was Ronald Reagan. Reagan, through a daring espionage campaign, managed to secretly place hundreds of ghost super soldiers in the Soviet Union. On his command, the ghost super soldiers executed as many ghost aliens as they could find, then stormed the Kremlin, destroying the alien cloning facility underneath it, guaranteeing that the Soviets couldn't make any more ghost aliens. Without the militaristic assistance of the ghost aliens, the Soviet Union fell swiftly afterwards. Seeing this, the Nazi Germans moved completely into Agartha, biding their time, waiting for the day to storm the surface world and reclaim their homeland. The Americans had won the Cold War. This now brings us to the day. The Americans rule the surface world, while the Germans wait in the shadows, post a strike. With all the recent instability in the USA, I wouldn't be surprised if they invaded soon. Now that history lesson is over /x/, I pose you one question. What will you do to help stop the imminent ghost dinosaur invasion?